All right, I think we're live. Can you guys hear me? Post in the chat if you can hear me right now. Nothing. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I see some things in the chat. Okay, thank you, mess around kid. I just saw your message said we can hear you. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you, all of you who showed up again today. I see there's 28 of you on right now, and I see some of you were from here. You were here on the last one. So thanks again for showing up. I'm always still shocked that people show up to these. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support, and I'm glad that we get to do this. Format for tonight is going to kind of be the same thing as it was last time. If you were here last time, I'm going to shoot for about an hour. If we go a little bit more, that's fine, whatever. We will do these again if you guys find these useful and helpful. Feel free to ask any questions that you want at any point. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I get really advanced questions to really simple questions and everything in between. If there's somebody that jumps in here that tries to, apparently people have nothing better to do sometimes than to just jump in and troll on other people. Just point it out. I'll kick them out. Stupid people everywhere. But again, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Feel free to ask whatever you want. I'll do my best to answer the best that I can. And then the last thing is a lot of you in the last live were very supportive. At the bottom, right where you type something in, there's a little dollar symbol. I think it's called Super Chat. If you do decide to donate to the channel, that's awesome. I really appreciate it. I promise I will answer your question. If you do that, a big orange or yellow thing pops up on my screen that tells me anytime somebody does that. So if you have a burning desire to have whatever question you might have answered, that's probably the best way to make sure it catches my attention. I see as I'm talking a lot of different ones, a lot of questions pop up as they go, so it's hard for me to keep track. So if you do have a question you really need answered, and if you feel like donating to the channel, I appreciate it. Do a super chat. And speaking of that, the first person that was in here is Abby Schroer. I think I'm saying your name right, Abby. She did do a super chat for $19.99, and I appreciate that. And her question was, when a job gets posted for the fire department, how long do they usually keep it up for? Good question. A lot of different jurisdictions, I'm assuming you're talking about a career fire department. Some places, if they just have a constant need and it's just a rolling need for firefighters, they'll just leave it open and you can come and apply, and then they'll bring people in as necessary as long as you have whatever requirements they have. But other places, what they'll typically do is they'll put out an announcement. So for example, today's April 26th while we're doing this. What a city might typically do is they'll announce that they're going to be giving a test on, let's say, June 1st, 4 weeks, 6 weeks out, however long. And they'll have an application period. And they'll take down that announcement whenever that application period ends. So if their test is on June 1st, maybe they'll be accepting applications till, I don't know, maybe May 15th. And on May 15th, they'll take that out. Other places will have rules as far as how many times they need to post that in the newspaper or to, whatever the local news blog or something like that is. Usually it's up for a few weeks to a month. Usually it's up for a few weeks leading up to the test. Again, just depends on the department. It depends on the local rules and regulations too. It might be a little bit different depending on where you live, but really good question. So the next question I will jump right into is Diego Jaramillo. I think I'm saying that right. It says, what is a volunteer firefighter in that process? I don't get that. Volunteer firefighter, pretty simply, is just kind of what it sounds like. People that are volunteers volunteer their time either for free or to only get paid when they show up on a call. It's usually very little money. What you'll do is they'll put you'll have a pager that they'll assign to you, that they'll give you, and with that pager, anytime it goes off, you just head out and you roll out on the call and you go from there. As far as what the process is, you just go to your local volunteer department usually and just apply, ask them if they have a need, anything like that, and they'll handle the hiring process from there. David Jacobs just did a super chat and donated $1.99. to the channel. So thank you, David. And he asks, how long is the fire academy? Good question, because it depends on where you go to your fire academy. If you're working if you get hired at a big city, they're going to want to send you to their own fire academy. And it's all going to depend. It can usually be anywhere from 3 months to the longer ones are 6 months. If you go to a private academy at like a local school or something like that, a community college, they'll have fire academies that usually won't be longer than an entire semester. So what's that, like 4 months? A lot of times they'll have accelerated ones, but you're going to have to go every day for several hours a day. I think when I went through the fire academy, I did a 10-week program. And it was, I want to say it was like 4 or 6 hours a day, 3 days a week, or something like that. Depending on where you live, for example, in Ohio, a firefighter 1 certification, I believe it's 120 hours. And a firefighter 2 is 260 hours. So you have to get those 260 hours to get your firefighter 2 certification, which is what most fire academies are going to push you through. They're going to try and get you your firefighter 2. So however long it takes you to fulfill those 260 hours typically is how it goes. Also, very good question. Eric Folger asks, do I have to become a volunteer firefighter before becoming a career firefighter? No, you do not. I was not a volunteer firefighter, and I went straight into career firefighting. A lot of other people I know went directly into it. You don't necessarily need to have experience. I didn't really have experience at all when I first got hired. So, I mean, I was a paramedic, but I had no fire experience really to say, and I didn't really have a lot of experience outside of just general paramedic school, EMT school ride time. My paramedic experience, I worked in an emergency room. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, it still gives you some good experience, especially if you are going to be working somewhere where there's going to be a lot of EMS calls, but you do not have to be a firefighter or a volunteer firefighter or a part-time firefighter anywhere in order to get directly into career firefighting. Let's see, what else do we have here? Saul Cardona asks, what kind of questions are part of an oral examination? Good question, Saul. So they're going to ask you, obviously, I break them down into 4 different categories: who, what, why, and how questions. Who questions, fairly straightforward. Tell us about yourself, who you are. They want to know your experiences, just general stuff about who you are as a person and as a candidate. What questions, they're trying to figure out what types of things do you know. They want to find out about your background. They want to find out about your work history, what types of skills, how much of an asset are you going to be to this department? Now, those questions can come in a variety of ways. If you scroll through this channel, a ton of stuff on this channel is about the interview. So if you have any questions about the interview, be sure to look through here, and I go through actual specific questions and answer them for you. Why questions essentially is, why are you here? Why do you want to be a firefighter? That's obviously the most common why question you'll get in a firefighter interview. And then the how questions are the situational interview questions. Those are the ones that put you in some sort of either professional or personal dilemma. Questions like you're doing overhaul on a house and you see another firefighter grab cash out of a drawer and put it in their pocket and walk out. What do you do? How do you handle it? Puts you between the rock and a hard place. You know, do you not want to make any waves? Do you want to just not say anything and let it go? Or do you say something? If you do say something, what do you say? How do you say it? So those are typically the 4 categories. Like I said, there's a ton of content on this channel that goes over specific questions, and I give you actual answers to them. So be sure to look that up on here as well. Carlos Gutierrez just donated $9.99 to the channel. So thank you, Carlos. And he says, I'm a firefighter from Mexico, Jalisco. I think I'm saying that right. But I'm living in California. Where can I get used equipment for my brothers and sisters, firefighters from my country? Ooh, that is a good question. What kind of equipment do you mean? As far as turnout gear, I think that stuff has a actual lifespan where the NFPA. I don't know how you guys do things in Mexico, but in the NFPA, they won't allow you really to reuse that again. Maybe it's different where you are. But as far as actual gear that you use, or I shouldn't say gear, like equipment, I know a lot of times Gov Deals, I believe, is a website where fire departments, because they're government entities, will sell old equipment, generators, nozzles, hoses, things like that. And you can usually get them for a steal. So I would definitely, if I were you, check out Gov Deals. I'm pretty sure they would do that in California. I think that's a nationwide thing. I know it's a thing here in Ohio. As far as other places to get used equipment, I don't know. But again, the things that kind of have a definite lifespan, I don't know if you'd be able to reuse helmets or something like that. I don't know, but that would be something to find out. What else? Drewby just donated $10 to the channel. Thank you, Drewby. He says, I'm currently a 21-year-old who lives in the Pacific Northwest. Drewby, where in the Pacific Northwest are you? I go back and forth to Oregon quite a bit. WSP offers a training academy for Firefighter 1. Should I take my EMTB course first before I apply for the academy? I've also completed my CPAT. Well, good for you for getting your CPAT out of the way. I'd get your EMTB as soon as you can. I don't know when WSP would offer that. I don't know if they can't do it for another 6 months or maybe a year. I don't know if there's a waiting list. It depends. But I mean, if you're able to get into a Firefighter 1 class really soon, obviously don't pass that up to go to EMT school. Try and go into EMT school at the exact same time if you can, to try and get as much of it done as fast as you can, as soon as you can. That's my recommendation to everybody for any of these types of certifications. It gives you more experience. It just sets you up for so much more success. And at 21, you've got plenty of time. You're in no rush. So yeah, but good question. Who else do we have? Corman in an ambulance says, I'm a paramedic for a private EMS company in Texas. Oh, and Corman for an ambulance also donated $4.99 to the channel. So thank you, Corman in an ambulance. I'm a paramedic for a private EMS company in Texas trying to get involved with a municipality. Should I get certs on my own or try to get sponsored? I would recommend, if you can swing it, to do it on your own for a couple, and that's a really good question. And that's for a couple reasons. Number one, all these cities, all these municipalities, I mean, some are wealthier than others, but none of them like to spend money. So if you come in there right off the bat and you already have everything you need, great. If you can go in there and they'll send you to an academy and you don't have to spend $1, even better. But a lot of them are really going to like that you have everything right off the bat. So I would do that if you can swing it financially. There's a lot of stuff out there that will help you. There's some scholarship opportunities. I would get on a volunteer fire department, quite honestly. I know a lot of volunteer fire departments. If you commit to staying with them for a certain amount of time, what they'll do is they'll pay for some of your certifications. And if you already have some sort of EMS because you're working in private ambulance, and if you're a corpsman, I'm assuming you were in the Navy at some point as a medic, you obviously have that kind of experience going for you. But try and get those as soon as you can. I would recommend you do them on your own just because you're going to stand out more. Patrick Rosemark also donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you, Patrick. Says, I am a volley firefighter, will be an EMT soon and get my fire 1 and 2, technical rescue and hazmat, also a bachelor's in fire science. What else would make me stand out? Just experience, Patrick. You got a lot of good stuff coming your way as far as certifications. Keep staying with the volunteer fire department. Just keep getting as much experience as you can. Keep staying humble, obviously. Whatever department you do get hired on eventually, your experience is going to be good, but don't think that that's, the end all be all. You're going to learn a lot as you get older, but obviously that's something else. But as far as having both of your fire certs, a tech rescue cert, I don't even have a tech rescue cert. Hazmat a lot of times will go along with the fire certs. So that's good that you'll be getting that. And a bachelor's in fire science. This is all good stuff. I mean, just keep getting the experience. Try and get as much experience once you get your EMT and as much 911 experience as you can. Private ambulance isn't bad, but 911 situations and private ambulance situations are obviously two very different animals. And so as much actual 911 experience as you can get, the better. What else? Ruben Yarrow just donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you, Ruben, for the donation. Says, what is the difference between Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2? It's just a certification level. It's similar in some ways to the way that there's EMTs and then there's paramedics. EMT school is shorter and it's not as involved. Paramedic school is much longer. It's a more advanced certification. It allows you to do more things. As far as exactly what do they let you do as a firefighter 2 that they don't as a firefighter 1, I don't know. But 1 and 2 depends on the number of hours of training that you have, the amount of hours of classwork that you have. 2, again, like I said earlier, I think firefighter 1 in Ohio is 120 hours and firefighter 2 is 260 hours. So that's really the only difference. A lot of full-time departments will want you to be a firefighter 2 as opposed to a firefighter 1. I'm sure there's some out there that don't care, but generally they're going to want firefighter 2. I think firefighter 2 also comes with some hazardous material training as well, and just some other ancillary training that goes along with it. But good question. Very good question. Let's jump back to some of these other ones here real quick. Let's see what else I can pick out. Stony Totten says, I think I said that right, Stony. Just got my final evaluations notice in the mail. I will be studying your videos intensely up until my oral interview and polygraph in the next 3 weeks. It's my dream department, Capital City, West Virginia. Awesome. Congratulations. Let's see. Okay, McBins, I'm assuming I'm saying this correctly. Can I buy a firefighter mask just to have one? Maybe. I don't know. I don't see why you couldn't. It's not like it's any sort of specialized equipment. I don't know why you would want one, though. You have to have an SCBA that hooks into it properly for it to work. I actually have no idea how much they cost. I can't imagine they're very cheap. So yeah, I'm sure you can get one, though. Oh, and a fun fact for those of you about firefighter masks, that is the weakest part of your gear as a firefighter. Your mask will fail before anything else will, which is another reason they tell you to stay low on fires. Eric asks, wearing an Apple Watch as a firefighter? Yeah, you can do that. A lot of people do it. I used to. I don't wear an Apple Watch anymore, but a lot of people do that. Let's see. Poisonous Mango says, I think he accidentally missed my question. Do any current firefighters know? I did miss your question. So if I do miss your question, I apologize. From what I can see in my view, I see it scrolling and it scrolls very quickly. And anytime I move my mouse, it jumps to the very bottom. So if I miss people's questions, don't feel bad just sending it in here. You're not bugging me. I'm not trying to purposely ignore anybody. Do any firefighters here know if it is expected to bring letters of recommendation and copies of your resume to the panel interview if you have no fire or EMS experience? Good question. And yes, I would certainly still bring those things. A letter of recommendation, they don't really care if it's from a firefighter or not. Obviously, most people are, when you get a letter of recommendation, nobody's going to get a letter of recommendation from somebody who's going to have something bad to say about you. If that's something that you do, I would really think long and hard about doing that. Everybody knows letters of recommendation are going to have nothing but good things to say in them. They just want to know that if you're having a letter of recommendation written for you, that it's somebody that's not, your mom or your dad. It's somebody that has worked with you extensively as a coworker or in some sort of supervisory role. Maybe it was a teacher, maybe it's a boss, maybe it's, whatever. So I would definitely bring a letter of recommendation. I would certainly bring a resume too, because it's a written sample of your work history. One of the questions that they're going to ask is they're going to want to know what sort of skills you are going to bring to the department. If you can reference the things on your resume, I mean, that just solidifies your answer anymore. So even if you don't have fire and EMS experience, like I said, when I got hired, I did not have a lot of fire and EMS experience. For those of you that missed it earlier, I did not work as a firefighter, and I was a paramedic, but I only worked in an ER. I was not out on a squad. So definitely still bring letters of recommendation and a resume with you. Last Food Bender just donated $10 through Super Chat. Thank you, Last Food Bender. Says, got hired as aviation firefighter for aircraft rescue at airport fire and medical calls in the surrounding counties. Application submission to starting academy only took 6 weeks. I start the academy Thursday. Congratulations, Last Food Bender. That's awesome. And thank you for the second $10 donation. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. For those of you that don't know, airport firefighting is its own little subspecialty, sub-niche of firefighting. They have specialty gear, specialty masks. Obviously, jet fuel burns extremely hot. It's a cool job. I work with a guy that was a firefighter in the Air Force for a long time, and he did a lot of that kind of stuff. It's definitely a cool job. Good luck going forward. It sounds like you're going to have some cool experiences and learn some pretty cool stuff. So what else do I have here? Inferno Health and Fitness just donated $6.99 Canadian dollars. I'm assuming that's what it says, CA. So, and thank you, Inferno Health and Fitness, for the contribution to the channel. Hey, man, do you work one-on-one with people? I would love to get in touch. Greetings from Ontario, Canada. Honestly, I have. Here's my take on this. I appreciate you asking, and I'm not opposed to working one-on-one with people. The problem is that in my personal life and life outside of here, I'm so busy. I don't. All right, let me back up. One of the reasons I started Firefighter Now is because there was no good information. There were no good resources out there for people that just wanted to get into the fire service. And I noticed that, but as I was going through, there was a handful of people out there that were charging hundreds and thousands of dollars to sit down and talk to somebody. And what I realized is most people that want to get into fire and EMS don't just have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting around. They would charge $300 just to talk to you for an hour or a half hour. And I thought that was, criminal's too strong of a word, but I thought that was so wrong that you're just gouging these people that are trying to get into the fire service. And if you're in the fire service, all you talk about is how you want to improve the fire service. But good people that want to get in don't have the money to do that kind of stuff. I'm not opposed to it. That's why I want to start doing these lives more, so that people can ask me direct questions and I can help as much as I can. But let me think about it. I'll get back to everybody on that if I start doing that, and what would be an appropriate way to do it or the best venue to do it to make it as accessible for as many as people as possible. But yes, I guess to answer your question that really long-winded way, I am open to it. I would just have to think about how to do it so that as many people could be helped by it as possible, as opposed to only people with $500 or $1,000 or something like that. So thank you for the question. In the meantime, a lot of people, Jordan Schimmelfenning, I think I'm saying that right, Jordan. Sorry if I'm not. Just donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you so much for the donation. And I don't see, Jordan, I don't see a question from you. So if you do have a question, certainly let me know and I will happily answer it. Rambunctious Vids just donated $5 to the channel as well. Thank you, Rambunctious Vids. Do you have any advice on how to humble yourself to be the new guy and not know anything? Hoping to volunteer and go to uni in the fall. Thank you. Any advice on how to humble yourself to be the new guy? I'm not ignoring your question. I'm trying to think this through properly, because I don't want to give you just a blank answer and say, well, yeah, you just go in there and do it, because that's not very helpful. I would encourage you to take a step back and try and gain some sort of perspective. So obviously, I don't know you, Rambunctious Vids. Try and gain perspective on something that you know a lot about. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you were a baseball player and you know a lot about baseball, and you've been playing baseball since you can remember, since you were a little kid. And somebody that is newer to the game comes up to you and starts telling you how to do things. How annoyed would you be? Well, it's the same sort of thing that you're going to deal with as a veteran firefighter when somebody that just shows up tries to come in and try and show everybody how much they know when they really don't know that much. To use the baseball example, if I'm trying to tell you, who's been playing baseball for 20 years, how to swing a bat properly and why you're doing it wrong and I know better, I'm going to despise being around you. I'm not going to help you. So I guess what I'm trying to say is try and gain some perspective on how little I'm assuming you're not a firefighter, on how little you actually know about firefighting. Because most people's knowledge of firefighting and EMS and the fire service in general is is Hollywood. It's Chicago Fire, it's Station 19, it's all these other silly TV shows that just aren't realistic at all. And I'm not saying this is you may have more perspective on it, but that's most people's perspective. Or most people will go to the fire academy for 3 months, 6 months, whatever, and come out thinking they know everything. Literally, you're probably going to be on a crew with more collective experience than you've even been alive. So I guess the best way I would say is try to step outside yourself for a second and realize how little you probably do know. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have anything to contribute. That doesn't mean you don't know some sort of new trick or tactic that might be helpful, but just recognize that you're going to be surrounded by decades of experience. That would be the best way I could say to go into a process like that. Next, Dutastic just donated $9.99 to the channel. Thank you, Dutastic. I appreciate it. I see okay, good. I got a question from you. I work at a level 1 trauma center in Fort Lauderdale as a medic and have a firefighter 1 and 2 having difficulty, and I'm curious to know if that experience actually helps for attaining these firefighter paramedic positions in SF. I'm assuming that means South Florida. Yeah, so that experience does help. If you weren't here earlier, I said, before I got into firefighting, I had no fire experience. And I was a medic, but I only worked in an ER. I didn't really have any squad experience outside of my ride time. It does help, and it helps for a couple of reasons. Number one, it gives you the opportunity to network. I remember where I worked, I think there were people from maybe 4 or 5 other local departments that were paramedics that this was kind of their B job, their secondary job. And that's just what they would do on the side. So I got to know these people. I got to ask them questions. I got to build relationships with them, because in the future, if I ever needed somebody to vouch for me what it was like to work with me, I could always refer them back to these people. The other thing is, since you're already a medic, I'm sure you already know, how many times have you seen people that are new to EMS that the first few times they get around it in a stressful situation, they just panic and they lose it and they cannot keep it together. If you've been working, it sounds like you work in a big place. You said a level 1 trauma center in Fort Lauderdale. I'm sure you guys are pretty busy. So they obviously know how to handle yourself in a stressful situation, maybe not necessarily with firefighting, because that's a whole different animal, but at least in the EMS is what the majority of what your calls will probably be. So yeah, that experience does help. If you're having trouble getting hired, I would take a step back. Have an honest conversation with yourself. Where are you going wrong? Why are you missing out on these jobs? Have you ever asked any of these people or these departments after the hiring process is over and they say, hey, thanks for your time, we're going to move on with someone else? Hey, would you mind just giving me some constructive feedback? Nobody dislikes that, right? And so if you go forward and let's say a job position opens up again there next year, they'll remember you. If you're the person that said, hey, I respect your decision, but you mind if I ask why? Maybe try doing something like that. Poisonous Mango donated $24.99. I just missed it. He had a comment and I was going to read it. Said, thank you for all your help. Spend this at 80. If you guys haven't noticed, I wear these kind of pullovers all the time, and the ones that fit me the best are from Eddie Bauer. So I appreciate you noticing that, and I appreciate the donation. Brendan Davis says, can you tell us, also donated $5 to the channel. Thank you, Brendan. Says, can you tell us about your first fire, working on getting on full-time here in the Northeast? They get a ton of fire. Yeah, my first fire really wasn't that exciting. I'll be totally honest with you. It was a stove fire in a condo complex, and I'd gone on some other fire calls before, but one thing you'll get when you get hired on somewhere is you'll get a lot of real fire calls, but you'll also get a lot of alarm drops or potential fires, and you show up and it's actually nothing, or it's really not a big deal at all. You'll get a ton of that. So I'd had a bunch of those, but my first real fire where something actually was burning and it ended up not being a big deal at all, it was a stove fire. Lady was cleaning her stove with the self-clean button, and she left the rag that she was using to clean out in there, and it caught on fire, started smoking. It was really no big deal. But what I will tell you is how nervous you are going to be on your first fire. I'm a little bit embarrassed to probably even admit this on here. But I was so nervous on my first fire, the first time the tones went off and the dispatch actually said, this is a working structure fire. I was so nervous that I remember I changed into my turnout gear as fast as I could. And I got on the truck, and as we're pulling out of the bays, for some reason, I just wasn't thinking. I still had one of my station boots with me. I don't know why that made sense. And I just had to throw it out the window on the way out the door. But I was not thinking straight. And then when I got there, one of our trucks has, when you sit in there and you sit in the SCBA, you just kind of roll out of it and it'll release. Well, the other truck has an actual handle that you have to pull up between your legs, and you pull this handle and it'll release your SCBA pack, and you can roll out. Well, I don't know if I forgot what truck I was in or what. I kept trying to roll out and roll out and roll out, and I was just stuck in there until finally one of the other guys was like, just pull the handle. I had to pull the handle, and I was all frantic. I was all panicked. But it worked out. Like I said, it was no big deal. You will be so nervous on your first fire. Everybody tries to act like that was not them, that they never did that. But everybody was nervous on their first fire, their first real one, that they heard the tones go off and say it was a full-blown structure fire. So yeah, sorry, that wasn't that great of a story. Zerfin to the max, I think I'm saying that right, just donated $10. Thank you, Zerfin to the max. It says, I'm about to start EMT school next month. I'm thinking about learning a simple trade or extra firefighter courses. What trades and firefighter skills do most departments favor? Great question. And this is something I recommend for everybody. Let me make sure I didn't miss something really quick. Looking to get into the fire service is skills and trades. First skill is EMS. You're already starting your EMT school, so that's awesome. If you want to start doing other things in addition to that, and you want to be a good firefighter, learn building construction. Be a carpenter, be a plumber, electricity. Become an electrician. That is such a massive hazard on so many calls, wires down calls, trees down calls. Pretty much every house you go in is going to be electrified. You're going to have to, pull meters, things like that. Those are really, really, really good ones. The better you understand building construction and where the weak points and things you need to look out for, that is a huge asset in the fire service that is very, very underrated. And a lot of people these days don't have those skills. I don't have a trades background at all. So if you come in with that kind of knowledge right off the bat, knowing those types of things, that's really good. Another thing is small engines, repairs, things like that. You've got K12 saws, you got chainsaws, you've got a whole bunch of small engines, just little random tools, vehicles. I mean, obviously you don't need to go be a diesel mechanic and work on ladder trucks unless that's something that you're interested in, you want to do. But those things break all the time and they constantly need maintenance. So if you can be that person, again, those are really good skills to get as well. So good for you for doing that though. Who else is there? Let's see. LFB LDN donated £4.99 or euros. I'm not. Oh, yeah, pounds. I'm a firefighter with the London Fire Brigade looking to move to the States. Do I need to go through the application process again, or can I get a transfer there? Good question. I've never really dealt with that, but my guess is you're probably going to have to start all over. I don't know for sure. Here in the States, things are different state by state. For example, I looked into getting a Florida firefighter certification years ago. And where I live in Ohio, in order to be a Florida firefighter, they wouldn't accept it. There was no reciprocity. You had to start from the beginning, which I think is silly and ridiculous because fire burns the same pretty much anywhere you are in the world. And while the tactics and things like that might be slightly different, I wish there was some sort of onboarding or simple process to get that up and going. Because obviously, I'm assuming with the London Fire Brigade, that's obviously London's a big city. You probably have a ton of experience that would be very helpful, but I don't know for certain. But I would certainly expect that that's probably how it's going to go, is they're going to want you to start over. Sorry. Slug. Oh, wait, no. hold on. This is where it gets frustrating. I miss a lot of them. Harley Kramer donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you, Harley, for doing that. But it says message retracted. So if you send yours, I'm looking to see if I can find it. I don't think I can see it. It says, yeah, I see message retracted a few times. Thank you for donating. Vincent Gregory donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you for that, Vincent. Did you ever get discouraged once you first started out? I've been a firefighter for 1.5 years now. I wonder if all the training I do is ever enough. Yes, starting anything new can obviously be very discouraging. It's funny, if you've watched this channel, for some reason he's a controversial guy. I don't really know why, but I think I heard Jordan Peterson was the person that said this, and he said, in order to master anything, you first have to be willing to be a fool. And firefighting is no different. You have to be willing to start from the bottom. And yes, you are going to train and train and train and train and train, and you're not going to get it right away, and you're going to make mistakes, and it is very frustrating. And it sucks to be the person that you feel like, and it's usually not actually the case, but you feel like, you know, the class clown, the person that just can't sort it out. But yeah, that's totally normal to get frustrated. It's totally normal to get down on yourself. You will get there. You will get it. I've met a lot of firefighters that are awesome firefighters, but aren't necessarily the brightest people. And that's not necessarily a knock on anybody. But these people certainly aren't PhDs, but they are awesome, awesome firefighters. So you keep doing what you're doing, keep training, keep working, and yes, you will figure it out. You will get it. And the frustrations will subside. You're in your first year too. You said my first for 1.5 years now. Yeah, you got a long ways to go. So you're going to learn, you're going to get it. You're going to get better. It will get easier. So keep doing what you're doing, Vince. Slug, good name. Slug donated $5 to the channel. Thank you, Slug. Says, I had my driving privileges revoked when working for an ambulance company. How will this affect my chances when getting into a department? It's going to hurt. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not going to look good. The only way you will be able to get past that, though, is and this goes across the board. I'm sure some of you that are watching this have done dumb things. Maybe you messed around with drugs and you're going to get asked about it and you're going to have to get past it. Maybe you have a DUI or something like that and you're going to have to get past it, or some sort of silly, stupid misdemeanor from when you were a kid and you just did dumb stuff. We all do dumb stuff. And I would qualify the driving privileges revoked while you're working in EMS as, you know, I don't know the situation, but I would qualify that in the group of mistakes, dumb stuff. How do you get past it? The only way to get past mistakes like that is if you own them 100%. I mean, you have to jump in with both feet. And by that, I mean, if you go into the interview or you go into any part of this and you try and shrug it off or just not talk about it, or if you're asked directly about it, just kind of dance around it and try and change the subject, you will get called out so hard and nobody's going to trust anything that you say. The only way to approach it is by saying, yes, that did happen. Yes, it was my fault. It was extremely stupid. I have never done that or anything else like it since. In fact, here are the actions that I have taken to get past it. Action is king 100% of the time. Nobody cares what you says. Nobody cares what you says. Nobody cares what you say. Everybody cares what you do. Meaning, if you got your driving privileges revoked, what have you done to get them back? How have you acted since? Have you done any extra classes? Have you done any extra training? What led to you getting your driving privileges revoked? Yeah, I don't know your situation, but maybe you got them revoked for a DUI. Do you still drink? If you do still drink, why are you still drinking if you obviously aren't able to trust yourself with alcohol and not get behind the wheel? Those are the types of things that you need to address. You need to jump in with both feet and own it. No excuses. It was your fault. And then you need to talk about what actions you've taken to move past that sense. It's the only way you get past it. But yes, you are correct. That is going to sting, because obviously once you get hired, they're going to have to trust you with vehicles that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, depending on the vehicle. Good question, though. Jordan, oh no, it just skipped it again. Jordan Schimple-Fenning, thank you for the $9.99 donation. Says, hey, sir, love the channel. I've been a United States Air Force medic for 6 years and want to be a firefighter when I get out in 2023. What can I do until then to be the most competitive that I can be? Well, if you have the air, so I get this a lot. So this is good, because a lot of military people contact me saying, hey, I'm getting out in however long. What do I need to be doing? What do I need to be working on? If you already are a medic, you obviously have some EMS experience. First thing I would do is find out if your EMS experience can immediately transfer into civilian. I've heard that some military medic programs, which I don't understand this at all, it just doesn't count. I don't know if that's actually true. If somebody does know about that, if somebody on here was a military medic and came out and is a medic in the civilian world, please fact check me in the chat. Get whatever things you need lined up to get that civilian medic certification carried over. The next thing I would do is get whatever sort of fire training, fire classes you can get, whether it be in the Air Force, or what you can do to transfer it into the civilian world. If your fire certs in the military don't transfer into the civilian world, I would work on just civilian fire certs, because you're not going to want to have to do that all over again. But I would start working on those things as fast as you can. The fact that you have been an Air Force medic for 6 years and you still got a couple more years, you'll have 8 years total, it sounds like, is really good. Fire departments love former military people, because you are already familiar with the paramilitary environment. You already know what it's like to work in that sort of stressful environment and have chain of command, all those different types of things. So sounds like, well, first of all, thank you for the compliment for loving the channel. And also, it sounds like you're on a really good path. So just make sure what you can do and the skills you have can transfer to the civilian world. That way, when you get out, you're not hamstrung for another year having to go to paramedic school and do all that all over again. Jace Neal, I think I'm saying that correctly, donated $1.99. Thank you, Jace. But it says message retracted, so I don't see what you are asking me. Oh, there it is. I see it. It says, any tips for me? I'm in the process of becoming a firefighter for my hometown. Already have done my physical and written test. Waiting to hear back on the written test now. Any tips for you, Jace? I mean, it sounds like, so this is, it's funny. I put out a poll question the other day and asking people what they thought the most difficult part of the hiring process was. And one of the answers was the waiting game. So many people reached out and just said, the waiting game is killing me. And it sucks. There is not much you can do about the waiting game. It's terrible. I don't know why it takes departments so long to do this. I really don't see why. There's no real reason. I get that it might take a month or two, but some of these departments drag this out for so long. It is insane. Have you followed up? I would follow up with them. They should have given you an idea or an estimate of when the scores would come out. Usually they come out no later than 3 weeks after the test was taken. Other tips for you: start preparing for that interview. You said, let me make sure I got this right. You already did your physical and your written test. Start preparing for that interview, Jace. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to, if it's not this department, it'll be another one. Start hammering down your answers for the interview. Make sure those answers are dialed in. You're ready to go. I would really, really focus on that. Keep building your experience. I don't know if you're working as in EMS right now or as a volunteer. If you're not, get on a department right now. So yeah, I would just keep doing that. But the waiting game is frustrating. You're going to have to follow up. I would call the department if this is something you're going to do, and ask very calmly, very politely, hey, my name is so-and-so. I took the test. I'm wondering if there's any other information as far as when those results will be published. Thanks for your time. That person might not know. The worst thing you can do when you can follow up, and I get how annoying it is because I've done this before or had to do the waiting game before. The worst thing you can do, though, is because you're annoyed, and I'm not saying anybody here specifically will do this, is get an attitude with the person on the phone. It's not their fault. They probably know nothing about it. But if you do get an attitude with that person, they will remember that. So just try and be cool and just move on. That's the best thing I can recommend for you. Harley Kremer says, "Hey Mike, just wanted to say thank you for all the amazing content. Just landed my first Chiefs interview. Was wondering if you had any advice for the prep." Ooh, Chiefs interviews. Yes. So I do have a video on that on the channel, preparing for a Chiefs interview. As far as how to prepare for it, do it the same way you did for the interview. The advice I give people with Chiefs interviews versus, for those of you that don't, let me back up. For those of you that aren't familiar with this, one of the last steps in the hiring process is you will get called in for a Chiefs interview. Not every department does this, but a lot of them do. And it's after the interview panel. And it's usually just you and the chief, or maybe you and the chief and the mayor or the safety director. It's usually a smaller group of people. And they're just going to sit down and just ask you usually the questions are more geared towards you and trying to get a feel for you personally. The way that you should act in that interview, or the way you should approach that interview, the advice that I give people through analogy is, imagine you're sitting down with your boyfriend or girlfriend's parents for the first time. How are you going to act? You know, you're not going to be a stiff robot. You're going to come in, you're going to be very respectful, call them sir, call them ma'am, and just try and be more conversational. That doesn't mean you aren't professional. A lot of the same rules from the panel interview still apply, but it's a more intimate's a weird word to say, but I don't know what other word to say. It's usually just going to be you and them. They're trying to figure out who you are, what you're about, right? This person might be your boss here very shortly. So they want to know what you're like, but they also want to use that time to let you know what they're going to expect of you personally, because chances are in the fire department, you're not going to be answering directly to that chief. You will have multiple people between you and that person in the chain of command. So they want to get a final feel for who you are, what you're about, what you're like, before they give you the thumbs up. So, but very, very good question. A lot of people get really nervous for Chiefs interviews, and you should be. They're important, but you'll do just fine if you cruise through the interview or through the panel interview. So yeah, just make sure you're prepared for that. For those of you, I see there's been a lot of people donating to the channel in this video, and thank you so much for that. I cannot thank you enough. For those of you that have asked questions and I haven't gotten to, I promise you I'm not trying to ignore your question. I'm going to try and get as many questions as I can, but the people that feel as though they want to support the channel by donating, I feel an obligation to answer those people's questions first. So I'm still working my way through those, but I'm going to try and answer as many questions tonight. So again, if that's something you want to do, at the bottom where you can type in your question, there's a little $sign. You can click that. I think it's called a super chat, and you can attach a dollar amount. I will certainly call it out, say thank you for donating to the channel, and I promise I will get your question. So if I haven't gotten to your question yet, and you haven't done that, feel free to do so. If not, that's cool. Obviously, no pressure. But I'm going to make sure I answer those people's questions first. Let's see. Any tips? Damon Lennon donated. Oh, sometimes it skips all the way through these. Damon Lennon just donated $2. Thank you, Damon. I appreciate it. 28-year-old age to start trying to become a firefighter. I think what you're asking, Damon, is 28 too old to start becoming a firefighter? And the answer is no. I didn't get hired. I think I was 28. I think I just turned 28 when I got hired at my first department. Like literally just turned 28. So no, 28 is definitely not too old. There's a lot of people I know that have gotten hired later than that. So by no means is 28 too old. Definitely get in there, get after it. If this is what you want to do, put in the work. The fact that you're a little bit older you might even be able to use that to your advantage. The fact that you have some life experience behind you. So yeah, 28 is not too old at all. Ryan Conto, 1370-2015, donated $1.99 to the channel. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate the donation. Says, I am taking an EMT course right now. Any tips? Yeah, keep studying. Any tips for EMT school? So for those of you that don't know, I am a paramedic as well. So I guess if you do have questions related to that, I can answer those to the best of my knowledge as well. Any tips for EMT school? Stay organized. I don't know if you're working full time, if you're doing other things, but especially if you move on to paramedic school, it's not that the curriculum is unbelievably difficult. It gets to be a grind, right? Because not only do you have to go to class and you have to do your classes, but then you have to do clinical hours on top of that. And obviously there's more clinical hours in medic school than there are in EMT school, but just do the best that you can. The other tip I'm going to give you, and this is something that really drove me nuts, and it does with a lot of things. People that have passed the EMT national registry, people do this with EMT, people do this with medic, people do this with the CPA exam, they do this with the NCLEX for nurses, they do this with the bar exam for attorneys. People always that have that certification, and not always, but so many people will talk about, oh my God, it was so hard and I barely made it through. It's going to be the worst experience of your life. Oh, you're going to be lucky if you make it through. Don't listen to those people. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of EMTs out there. You can do it. Keep putting in the work, keep putting in the time and the effort, keep showing up to your clinicals, keep learning the best that you can. And the same thing applies to medic school. There are a lot, I don't know how many, but a lot of paramedics out there. It's definitely doable. It's just a grind. You just got to force yourself to get in there and keep doing the work. But don't listen to those people. There are going to be a lot of people out there that tell you that, and that is not true. Truly J Jack just donated $1.99 to the channel. Thank you, Truly J Jack. I appreciate the donation. Says, will I be able to do paramedic school as I'm a firefighter? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people will go to medic school, will go through medic school as firefighters. I forget what city it is around here, but one of the cities around here, one of the bigger cities, sends their people to paramedic school in addition to fire school, but you're a probationary firefighter as you're in medic school. So yeah, it's certainly possible. Lots of people do it. Lots of people go through medic school with full-time jobs and working as volunteers and whatever else. So yeah, you will certainly be able to do it, and you will be a big asset to your department once you're done. What else? Zach T donated $15 to the channel. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate the donation. Says, hello, thanks for the great content. I'm in the fire academy right now and have interest in becoming a fire investigator. Do you know the steps to becoming a county fire investigator in Ohio? Ooh, I don't know the exact steps. I'm going to write that down. I don't know. And what I will do is I will make a video about how to, arson investigation and fire investigation is kind of its own thing. I should look into that more and figure out exactly what those steps are. I know it's going to be a class, and usually my guess is to be an investigator, you're going to need a lot of experience as an investigator, or I'm sorry, a lot of classroom time to learn all the codes, the fire codes. Those are some pretty extensive books. But I don't know exactly what the classes are. I've never gone through any of those fire investigation courses, so I don't know. But yeah, also for those of you that are interested in the fire investigation track, there are a lot of opportunities for fire investigators, either while you are working as a firefighter, and you can kind of farm yourself out as a consultant. A lot of insurance companies are very interested in the skills and the knowledge that you have being a fire investigator. A lot of law firms or any sort of legal entity might be interested in the types of skills that you have. Obviously, you have to know what you're doing. Obviously, you have to have a ton of experience, right? You can't just come fresh out of fire investigation school and think that you're an expert. But there are a lot of opportunities for fire investigators and arson investigators out there that people don't really think about, but that there's a lot of other industries that really would benefit from people that have knowledge as far as what to look for on fire scenes, arson investigations, things like that. Very cool job, but it's going to be pretty book heavy. It's going to be pretty code heavy. There's going to be a good amount of science, fire science in there. But cool job. So good for you for doing that. What else do we have? I could swear I saw somebody else on here. Let me make sure I didn't miss this. Zach T. And then CJ Quinn, 88, donated $20 to the channels. Thank you, CJ Quinn. I appreciate it. CJ Quinn says, I'm 32 and I live in Elyria. All right, right next door. I worked insulation for 6 years and I'm certified in building analyst. I became a school bus driver for Midview, going to EMS short-term and paramedic. I want to get more involved in the fire service. So if you're familiar with the Midview area, check out a lot of the volunteer departments down in that area. I hesitate just because the internet's a weird place to start saying names of actual departments. But if you ask around, there's one particular department in that area. I know a lot of people that work at that department, and a lot of people have gone through if you're in Elyria, the Lorain County Community College EMS program. So start getting involved doing that. I would going to EMS short-term and paramedic. Yeah. I know some of your instructors, if you're at LC, and start talking to them. They'll point you exactly. I don't want to say anything on the internet just because people can get weird sometimes. Not that I think anybody on this is that type of person, but if this obviously gets posted, but yeah, start talking to your medic instructors and your EMS instructors. They'll have a lot of good resources to point you towards. And it's a small community out here, so I'm sure I will come across you at some point. But thank you again for the $20 donation. Joshua R. from New Zealand donated $3.49 New Zealand dollars. Thank you, Joshua R. Says, hey, man, thank you so much for your content, becoming a firefighter in New Zealand. Good for you. Big interview on Friday. I just wanted to say thank you. Well, you are very welcome, Joshua. Good luck on Friday. I'm sure you'll do great. Make sure you review those questions and your answers. Make sure you sit in front of the mirror. You've listened to yourself recorded back so that you try and get rid of the ums and the likes and the uhs, those kind of filler words. Keep putting in the work. Good for you for even being here right now and watching this, trying to learn, trying to improve, trying to get ready for Friday. So good luck. I'm interested to hear, what I think would be interesting is at some point to hear from, so one of my visions for this channel, and this is going a little bit off track, is to turn it into more of I really like learning from other people. So turning it into more of a interview kind of Q&A with other people, not necessarily just firefighters, but other interesting people that could add to the content, people that would have something some really good things to say. So if you are a firefighter or something like that in a different country, I recently saw a video about firefighters in Japan, and man, did it look different than it does here in the United States. Obviously, I know nothing about the Japanese firefighting system, but I thought it was so cool. I watched this whole video. So yeah, I'm just interested in learning about what other people do, how they do it, taking some of the best things from what we do and offering it to them, and vice versa. There's so much knowledge out there, and with the internet, I think it would be really cool, and I think it would be useful to a lot of people looking to get into the fire service, just to hear from other fire service leaders, not just here in the United States and Canada, but around the world, and how they do things. I don't know. I think that would be cool. So kind of jumped off on that tangent from seeing the New Zealand. Let's see. Aaron Smith donated $4.99. Thank you, Aaron Smith. I appreciate it. No question. Just wanted to say thank you for the videos. Firefighter EMT out of Pennsylvania. Oh, nice. Thank you for the donation. I appreciate it. And you're right next door. You're close. All right. I don't see any others any other people that have done a super chat. So I want to try and go back and answer some more people's questions. Like I said, I apologize. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to ignore anybody. I'm just trying to appreciate the people that wanted to make a donation. So let's see. I'll just pick somewhere random. I have Jim Bob Cramden. I've seen that name out here a few times. Thank you for jumping back on. Jim Bob says, Mike, are there any laws in driving a fire truck code 3? Yeah, there's a lot of laws. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of laws, but there are laws into driving any emergency vehicle code 3. For those of you that don't know, code 3 means lights and sirens. If you are driving code 3, I think the legal term that they say is you have to operate the vehicle with due regard. A lot of people think that you can just blow through intersections and red lights at 100 miles an hour. You cannot do that. And if you do get into an accident, you are going to have to explain in court why you were doing that and why the person in the back of the ambulance or the fire truck, when you're on your way to a mutual aid 20 minutes away and they've already said the fire's out, why you still felt the need to drive 60 miles an hour through an intersection and hit somebody. Same thing is if you get in a crash in an ambulance and you hurt that person in the back, there's a boatload of liability carried with driving ambulances and any emergency or fire trucks, any emergency vehicle, code 3. You need to be very careful. These are very big trucks. They can be very hard to control, especially if you've never driven one before. And you're sloshing around with, 500, 750, 1,000 gallons of water. That does not go around turns very easily. You could very easily roll that. You could hurt people in your vehicle. You can hurt other people. There are laws that do surround that, though, as far as what you can and can't do. What else do I have? Foxy Rosalina, the helpful fox girl. That is quite a name, but I like it. Donated $5 to the channel. Thank you, Foxy Rosalina. Said, I saw someone wearing tactical fire rescue shirt in my hometown in Georgia. Is that a real job? And if so, how do I join? I don't think it is. I've never heard of tactical fire rescue. There's fire rescue, and then there's maybe they're a SWAT medic. That's the only thing I can think of is tactical EMS is a thing. If you're unfamiliar with what tactical EMS is a lot of police departments, sheriff's departments, places like that will attach, very similar to a military unit, will attach medics to that tactical unit, that SWAT unit, whatever. And their job will be to be a part of that SWAT team. Their job is to, if one of their people gets hurt, to tend to rescue and treat that person and stay with them all the way to the hospital, and vice versa. Whoever the SWAT team is going after, or if an innocent bystander gets hurt, whatever is going on, their job is to tend to that person, treat that person's wounds, keep them alive, stay with them. And so that a lot of times is referred to as tactical EMS, but I've never heard of tactical fire rescue. So I don't know what that is. I'm not familiar. Abigail F just donated $10 to the channel. Thank you, Abigail. Says, I am a college freshman and interested in the medical field. Thinking about taking some time off and volunteering. Would this be a good time to do it and a good introduction to the medical field? So I went to medic school with a girl whose ultimate goal was to be a doctor and go to med school. There are people that do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You will definitely, is this a good idea? I don't know if I want to say it's a good idea because that's something only you can answer. I don't know what your ultimate goals are as far as getting into the medical field. Do you want to be a doctor? Do you want to be a nurse? Do you want to be, where do you want to end up on that medical field spectrum? Volunteering is always a good thing. I will never discourage anybody from getting into volunteering. One thing that I will say is that working in public safety, especially in the medical side of it, all sides of it, but in the medical side of it, you get a front row seat and a firsthand education to what the real world is like. And by that, I mean, no matter where you live, whether it be a rich city, poor city, big, small, rural, urban, doesn't matter, you will come across the entire spectrum of humanity. You will come across some of the best people you've ever met in your life, and you will come across some of the most god-awful worst people you've ever met in your life, and everything in between. So if you want, you can get a lot of medical knowledge, and having emergency medical training is always a good thing. That's always a good person to have around. So I would say that that's a positive. I also would say that getting that sort of real world experience, it's one thing. It's like anything else. Spending all your time in a classroom gives you a lot of knowledge, but you don't know that much, because when you get out in the real world, things are usually pretty different than the way that they are in the classroom. So spending that time, getting that emergency medical training and going out in the real world and seeing what it's like, I think would be really, really, really useful for you. But again, it depends on what your long-term goal is. If your long-term goal is to be a brain surgeon, then the benefit may be negligible. But if your goal is to work in emergency medicine someday, maybe you want to be an ER doc or something like that, might not be a bad idea. I've met a few medics that have gone on to medical school, and they are fantastic doctors and residents now because they have such a good knowledge of what the real world's like. And I work with one that's a physician's assistant, and he is unbelievable when it comes to emergency medical stuff. So yeah, it just depends on your situation, but it's certainly not a bad idea. What else do we have? Lycan, I think I'm saying that right. Lycan Baron donated $9.99 to the channel. Thank you, Lycan. I appreciate it. Lycan says, I'm a high school student currently in my city's cadet program, and I wanted to thank you because your videos really inspired me to keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Lycan. I appreciate that. And you're the one putting in the work. I'm just throwing out some information. So good for you for signing up for the cadet program. Good for you for being brave enough to show up. I know that scares off a lot of people. It can be intimidating walking into a fire department with all this big machinery and these people that are busy doing their own thing. It can certainly be intimidating. So good for you for putting in the work. Good for you for showing up and taking the first step at a young age. So that's awesome. Thank you for your support. Troppy305 donated $19.99 to the channel. Thank you, Troppy305. I appreciate it. Says, thank you for all your advice. I'll be using these skills when Dade County opens up. Oh, you are very welcome, Troppy305. Good luck going forward. Make sure you get those certifications and prepare for that interview. That interview is important. That interview can be very difficult. So good for you, and thank you for the kind words. Let me see if I can answer some more other ones. I don't see any others in here right now. Oh, just kidding. Connor two of them. Connor Zydek just donated $9.99 to the channel. Thank you, Connor. I appreciate the donation. Says, hi, 23-year-old from Michigan, just graduated with bachelor's in aviation management, looking to maybe get into firefighting. That's cool. As ARFF goes, do you know some pros and cons with airport versus city? Are they federally funded? Ooh, good questions. Pros and cons with airport versus city. I don't know if they're federally funded or not. I don't know for sure. So if somebody does know, please jump in the chat and correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think airports are, at least the firefighting side, is federally funded unless you are working unless it is obviously a federal job. But as far as pros and cons to airport firefighting, your schedule's probably going to be different. I've met only a couple airport firefighters, and the ones that I have met were 24 on, 24 off. That was their schedule. Some of them liked it, some of them didn't. It certainly wasn't as day-to-day action-packed as, New York or LA or something like that. You're gonna face some unique stuff. You're not going to be doing typical structural firefighting, at least not usually. As far as cons, I mean, I can't really think of any cons. I mean, it's a cool job, especially if you have a background in aviation. I mean, what an awesome job. Those fires are going to be intense, though. I don't know. I don't know. I can't think of really any pros and cons. It's a cool job. Your schedule might be a little different. I've heard of a lot of airports running into issues with funding because a lot of times they are privately funded, unless there's some sort of tax dollars that go to subsidize that. So that might be a con as far as job security. Whether you like unions or not, some of them are unionized, some of them are not. It just depends. So yeah, those would really be the only pros and cons that I can think of. But that's a really good question. What I should do is I should do it. You know what? I should do a video on airport firefighting, or just the different types of firefighting, like industrial firefighting, because that's its own beast. Airport firefighting, structural, wildland. I should do a video comparing and contrasting all those different things. Somebody else jumped on here. Slug, you're back. Just donated $5. Thank you again, Slug. Says, by the way, I appreciate you taking the time. I have 0 connections. Are my chances basically shot in a super competitive department, South Florida? Nope. Your chances are not shot if you have no connections. I had no connections. I know lots of people that had no connections. You just kind of have to know what's expected, and you have to start building those connections. And the easiest way to start building those connections is to get involved. Volunteer fire departments, EMS, things like that. But by no means is not having connections going to keep you from being a firefighter. It's definitely more difficult. There's going to be, it's nice when you have connections that can kind of guide you through the process. I mean, that's the whole point of this channel, is to hope to guide people like you, Slug, through this process, just because I made a lot of mistakes, a lot of things I didn't know what to expect. The goal of this is to try and guide people through this process the best that I can. So, but no, it is certainly still possible to get hired. What else? I feel like I saw somebody else. Oh, LaSalle Jones just donated $5 to the channel. Thank you, LaSalle Jones. What are tips for advancing a career? I aspire to be top brass. Good for you, LaSalle. Tips for advancing your career. Well, the first thing I would do is I would start I'd start working on a good reputation. And that sounds so simple and basic, but what you will learn, and if there's any career firefighters that are on this chat right now, please jump in and let me know if you think this is the case or not. Whether you're in a big department, which is especially true, but even the smaller departments, it can be extremely political, and they try and depoliticize it the best that they can by the testing process and the promotional process, but it's still really hard to get past the politicization of it. So building yourself a good reputation, building yourself as a good team member, a good team player, and also being a leader. And being a leader means a lot more than just having a gold badge. Being a leader in the context of the fire service, actually some of the best information out there on leadership is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with who Jocko Willink is, former Navy SEAL. He's written multiple books on leadership. He has a podcast, the Jocko Podcast. He talks extensively about leadership. I would start reading through some of his books and start learning about what being a true leader means. A lot of people think they're leaders because they have gold badges or because they have some sort of status. And a lot of times the people that think that they're leaders simply because there's gold on their chest are the worst leaders that nobody ever wants to work for, and nobody ever wants to go into battle, go into a fire, go into whatever with. Learn to be a really good leader. So that would be my first thing. Second thing, learn to deal with the politicization. Third, know your job really, 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 really well. The best leaders are not only the people that look out for their team members, but the people that know the job really well. I think it's awesome that people come into the fire service with so much ambition to move up. And I think it's a shame. this will probably get some people that are currently in the fire service wound up. I don't think the fire service in its current capacity does a good job at facilitating that ambition. And by that, I mean that there's this sort of gnawing old school mentality in a lot of places in the fire service of, you're new, you have ambition, you need to sit over there and shut up for the next 10 years. And once those 10 years are up, then your opinion starts to matter. And I think that is killer for people that want to get into the fire service and want to work their way up and want to do things in a better way and facilitate the fire service. So good for you for having that ambition. Don't get rid of that ambition. You might get very frustrated at the beginning. It's normal. Learn to be a good leader, learn your job really well, and learn to deal with the politics, and you'll be on a good path. Let's see what else I got. Let's see. I see somebody else made a donation, but somebody else just asked, Mike or Eric Salazar asked, any meaning behind the rhino? No, I thought it was, I think they're cool animals. I read a book a long time ago. I think Dave Ramsey wrote it. I think it's called Rhinoceros Success. And it wasn't even like a really good, deep book. It was just a silly book just about how rhinoceroses just put their head down and plow through whatever they're trying. Like, they don't get distracted by other things, and they don't deal with, oh, I think I'm good enough today. They're just rhinoceroses, man. They just put their head down and charge. So I think rhinoceroses are really cool animals. They're pretty badass. There's no specific meaning. I saw this online and I thought it was cool, so I got it. But yeah, I have this little gold rhino here on my desk. I don't know why. I just think they're cool animals, but good question. Good noticing that. Bradley Crooks just donated $9.99 to the channel. Thank you, Bradley. I appreciate the donation. Let's see. Bradley, I don't know if you asked any questions, though. Did you have any questions, Brad? Oh, there it is. I'm in the Marine Corps right now. I'll be getting out after 10 years of active duty, infantry. I'm asking how competitive we are and how easy the transition is. I'm assuming how competitive you are, meaning how much of a boost being a Marine gives you. It gives you quite a bit of boost, especially if you're in the Marine Corps infantry. God, what a tough job. Being military, especially some sort of combat arms role, does give you a boost. Obviously, the job is obviously very different, but the fact that you're able to work under stress, work in very difficult situations, you have that military experience, your experience in dealing with the chain of command, you're able to handle yourself. That goes a really, really, really long way. That speaks to the intangibles that everybody likes to talk about. We want paramedics. We want people with college degrees. We want people with this. We want people with that. All of that's good, but that doesn't make you a good firefighter. And I'm assuming it's probably, I've never been a Marine. I'm assuming it's probably similar with being in the infantry in the Marine Corps. Having all that knowledge and skills is great, but if you don't have the intangibles, if you don't have the mental toughness and fortitude, if you don't have that just kind of grit and fight in you, it's going to be hard to be a great Marine. It's the same thing with firefighting. So the fact that you already have a lot of those intangibles will be very, very helpful for you. What else? Somebody just wrote, what are Star Wars Studios? Let me make sure I didn't have anything else. Yep. Star Wars Studios says, what are the health requirements to join? I am healthy but have slightly elevated blood pressure. The health requirements are going to be different place to place, but as far as slightly elevated blood pressure, I don't see why that would be an issue. If for some reason a department had an issue with that, I've never heard of that. One of the things they will probably have you do in your during the hiring process, they'll run you through like a general physical. One of the things that they'll have you do is a stress test. And in the stress test, they'll test your heart, see how it reacts. They'll do a 12-lead EKG, make sure you don't have any major issues. And yeah, so, but I don't see how that would be a big issue. Let's see here. Eric Folger asked me, what is the best call you've responded to? I'm not sure what you mean by that. What do you mean by best? If you ask me, if you clarify what you mean by best, I'll see what I can come up with. Bradley Crook says, I appreciate it. Oh yeah, no problem. No problem. I hope that was helpful. Let me go back and see if I can answer some other people's questions. Do you know the FDNY hiring process? I do not. Okay. George Cefantes, I think that's correct. Uh-oh, don't go away. Says, any fitness targets you recommend focusing on before going to an academy? Fitness targets. I don't have any specific fitness targets that I would recommend you hit, as in like run a 6-minute mile or anything like that. I would recommend that you train every day and you train in intervals, meaning you can do a minute of extremely hard, all out physical exertion and then be able to recover in a minute. What a lot of people don't realize with firefighting fitness is that is what firefighting is in a nutshell. You go really hard for a few minutes and then you rest, and then you go really hard and you rest, and you go really hard and you rest. And it is brutal. If you've never actually fought a fire and you've never actually had to drag hose through a dark room in really hot environments, it is very, very hard. It is very, very tiring. So I would train in intervals. I would be able to exert yourself at a very high level for a short time and focus on shortening that recovery period. I once had a trainer that told me fitness isn't how long you can go, it's how quick you can recover. And I think that is a really, really good way to look at how to approach fitness, especially, well, I was a soccer player in soccer, but especially in the context of firefighting. You're going to be expected to work very hard and then recover as quick as you can. Let's see here. I see some other people donated, so thank you for that. Let's see what their questions were. Ben donated $5. Thank you, Ben, for the donation. I appreciate it. Said, what are pros and cons to working by coast or mountains? I love both, but can't decide. I have 4 years before needing to choose, but it's good to think ahead. Yeah. So I'm going to be biased on this. I'm more of a beach water person. So I would always 100% of the time choose the coast just because I love the coast. But pros and cons would be probably what training opportunities you have. For example, if you like diving and you like water and you like public safety and rescue diving and all of those types of things, go to the coast. You're going to have some really cool opportunities. I know a lot of these coastal places even have fire boats, which I think would be the coolest thing ever. You just hang out on the boat, and if there's a fire out there, that's your job. How cool is that? You get to float around. And again, I'm biased because I'm a water guy. I would love that. You might have some different opportunities. As far as mountains, if you're into EMS, you could look into, or even tech rescue, high angle rescue, rappelling, things like that. If that's something you're into, I'm not much of a tech rescue guy. I've never really been into it, so that wouldn't really appeal to me, but it might appeal to you. You'll have a lot more opportunities for things like that, finding probably stranded hikers, doing rescues, things like that. They'd probably have a little bit more of an opportunity, but both would be very cool. Both are going to present themselves with some cool opportunities. It really just depends on what you want to do. Mountains would probably have a little bit more wildland firefighting as well, if wildland firefighting is something that you're into. So yeah, cool things across the board. Jason Salvador just sent a $20 donation. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. Says, hi, sir. I'm a former firefighter in the Philippines and pursuing a firefighting career here in Ontario. Good for you. I've been watching your videos. It is very helpful. I have learned a lot and can't thank you enough. I can't wait to be a firefighter. Well, thank you for the donation, and thank you for saying that. And that is really cool. I bet you have some really cool experiences, and it's probably, I wonder if it's really different in the Philippines versus in Canada or in the US and how they approach things, what the tactics are. I'm sure some of the things are different. I would imagine they would have to be, but that's interesting. That's really cool. Gray Fox donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you, Gray Fox. I appreciate that. Gray Fox asks, for wanting to join a department, what specific things about the department should I learn about? Very good question, because this is important. When you show up to an interview, the panel obviously knows that there's going to be a lot of things you don't know, or there would be no way for you to know about the department. But it also doesn't hurt if you prepare yourself, because they want to know that you're as interested in them as they are potentially as interested in you. So some of the things I would recommend you look up: the basics, who's the chief, how long has the department been around, how many personnel are on the department, approximately how many calls do they run. All that stuff's pretty easy public knowledge. Some of the other things that I would do, and nobody really does this, and I don't know why nobody does this, because maybe because not every interview they'll ask you what you know about the department. Some interviews they will, others they won't. Just Google whatever the name of the fire department is and just say, events in the last 5 years or whatever. Look up major events that the fire department's been involved in over the past however long, year, 2 years, 5 years, things like that. That's impressive. That means you actually did your homework and you followed the department and you find out about it. If you have Facebook, I don't really do any of the social medias. I don't have Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. But if you do, see if that department has a social media page. Try and stay current with whatever that department's current events are. What are some other things? Try and figure out some of the major structures or issues in whatever that area is. For example, where I work, there's part of a Ford plant here. That's a big deal. There's a power plant here. That's a big deal. Figure out what some of those things are. Figure out what some of the major impediments would be, or maybe you have a large forested area or something like that. Figure out as much as you can about that department. Some of it you'll be able to find. It's pretty obvious public knowledge. Some of it you might have to do some digging. If you know anybody in EMS or fire, start asking around. The fire world is a very, very small community. Somebody's going to know somebody that knows something that you are going to want to know. So I would start focusing on those things. Let's see. Oh, here's a good question. Hey, Mike, in your opinion, which would you list these from most important to least? Uh-oh, where'd it go? Mission, team, self. Mission, team, self. If we're speaking in the context of firefighting, so I'm going to contextualize this a little bit. Mission, team, self. On a fire scene, the answer is team, self, mission. And the reason for that would be your primary responsibility on a fire scene is to look out, preserve life and safety. So your job is going to be obviously to look out for your own life and your own safety, but also for the life and safety of your crew or whoever else is there with you. And their job is to do the same. So I guess that whole self and team part would be interchangeable. The mission, while it's important, is secondary to those things. Anything other than safety and life is secondary on the fire scene. And they will drive this into your head in the fire academy. If the goal is to save this structure over here because this one's on fire, and so we need to set this up, but if something happens, structures are replaceable. Your life is not. Your crew member's life is not replaceable. So that's what I would say between those three. But that's an interesting question. I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of those sort of like trick situational interview questions that you might see on some interview. What else do we have? Star Wars Studios just donated $2. Thank you, Star Wars Studios. Says, thanks so much for these videos. I'll be joining the cadet program soon. I'm nervous due to the fact that I'm afraid of heights, but I'm trying really hard to get rid of this fear. Good for you, Star Wars Studios, for facing your fears and just doing it anyways. Not only is it scary to show up there, but to show up somewhere where you're already nervous and do something that you don't really like or are scared of. Good for you. Most people out there do not have the fortitude to do that. So especially if you're in high school and you're a young kid and you're doing that, good for you. As far as how to get over that fear, you just got to go do it. You just got to force yourself to do it, and take incremental steps to keep doing it again and again and again. So do the best that you can. Roy Sotero donated $4.99 to the channel. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate that. Said, I've passed everything leading up to my oral board. The department says to wait to be contacted. It has been 3 months. Would you just wait? No, I would call them, Roy. I would call them and just say, hey, I'm Roy. I was calling to follow up. I haven't heard for 3 months, so I just wanted to see how the process was coming along or where I'm at in the process, or if there's anything else you need from me or any other information you need from me. Departments are supposed to notify you if they decide that they're going to go with someone else. If that's something that I don't think I've ever heard of a department that doesn't do that. They should be notifying you if they've moved on. But I would definitely follow up. If you weren't here earlier, I talked about following up. Just call, introduce yourself, be very nice and polite. It's very frustrating to do the waiting game. But if you are just polite with them, the worst thing you can do is you can get short or get an attitude with whoever you talk to. I'm not saying that you would do that, but make sure that you are polite with them. And I would follow up with them at this point. Hell, if it's been 3 months, I would call them. I'd call them tomorrow. And then if you don't hear from them in another month, I'd call them again. I would just do that monthly, unless they specifically tell you, stop calling us, we'll call you, don't call us. Then I would probably hold off. Paul Lynch donated $5 to the channel. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. He says, hey, Mike, I'm currently a college student getting my BSN. Good for you. Uh-oh, I just lost it. How is being a nurse as a B job? Is it common? Thoughts on getting degree first? So obviously I'm not a nurse, so I can't speak on what it's like to be a nurse, but I do know there are a lot of firefighters that are nurses as well, and that is their B job. Bonuses to that is a lot of the work that you do correlates to what you will be doing as a medic, assuming you work at a place that does EMS. Negative to that is the fact that a lot of the work you'll be doing correlates. So if you're doing very similar, if not the same thing, maybe you're an ER nurse all the time, and that gets really old for some people. Another benefit to it is that, oh God, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, another benefit to it is they are very flexible with your schedule and your ability to work and pick up part-time shifts and here and there. So that's very useful as well. Typically, you're not going to run into much grief as far as that goes. But as far as getting your degree, I think you're smart to do that. I think you're very, very, very smart to not put all of your eggs in the firefighting basket. And I don't mean that in the sense of because you won't be a firefighter, but I think firefighting is an inherently dangerous job. It's very difficult on your body. It could be potentially very dangerous for your health. And to rely your entire working ability, your skills into this very small niche that is firefighting, I think is not necessarily a good idea. I encourage everybody to get a B job, a secondary job, other sorts of skills, whether it be in the trades, whether it be something that you need to go to college for. But no, I think that's smart of you to get your nursing degree, and good for you for doing that work. Damon Lemon just donated $2. Thank you, Damon. I appreciate that. But I don't see a question from you. So I'm going to try and find more other questions. I'll do a handful more questions, and then I will, and then what I'll do, I'll do a few more questions. And then if you guys would like, I can start doing these more regularly. I know the last one that I did was 2 weeks ago. I can plan another one in another week or two if you guys like these and find these helpful. Again, if I didn't get to your question tonight, I am sorry. I promise I'm purposefully not trying to ignore anybody or anybody's questions. I'm trying to get as much as I can. But for the people that felt as though they wanted to donate, I don't want to disenfranchise them by not making sure I get to their questions. I had a lot of people on tonight. So let me do a couple more questions. Dario DeSantis says, my fire academy is only Thursdays and Fridays. What is a good part-time job to get till I get hired on somewhere? Dario, if you're in EMS, get an EMS job right away. If you're not in EMS, get a trades job, work for a roofer, work for a carpenter, work for anybody where you can get building skills. I would highly recommend that. I have a video that I'm still working on for B jobs for firefighters. So yeah, that's what I would focus on doing for now. If you can't do that, anything really, do whatever you need to do to support yourself and, keep moving forward. I mean, if for some reason those two aren't really possibilities for you right now, I would just do whatever you can do, whatever fits in your schedule. So that way you can keep focusing on firefighting and EMS. Oh, Jeff Christian asks a really good question. Could you include the most memorable or positive call? Yeah, so I'm having trouble thinking of there's a few. So, but I'll say the first one that came to mind was there was a guy who was, I don't remember how old he was. He was probably, I don't know, late 60s, early 70s, something like that. We got a call for just general weakness. He was in his bedroom upstairs. We went up to him, or we went up the stairs to his room, and we were talking to him, and he just seemed like he just wasn't really feeling that great, kind of weak. Said, all right, well, we brought a stair chair up there, had him sit in the stair chair, wheeled him down, got him out, got him in the squad. On the way to the hospital, guy codes, full code, heart stopped beating. They put the patches on him. I was actually driving on this call, but they put the patches on him. They shocked him. I think they shocked him twice, and they ended up bringing this guy back, which is if you haven't worked in EMS and you've never had that experience, this is probably one of the best things about firefighting in EMS is you have the ability to impact people's life in a major way. Brought this guy back, checked on him, a few days later, the hospital said, he had recovered and he had gone home and whatnot. Long story short, this guy, him and his wife and their children and his grandchildren all came to the station to say thank you to the three of us that were on that call. And that is such a cool feeling to be able to have that kind of effect on someone's life. And not just see how it affected that one person, but how it got to affect this man's wife, this man's children, this man's grandchildren. I don't know this man's personal situation and, who relies on him, how much for what and things like that. But that was probably, and there's a million stories like that, right? That was just one that randomly popped into my head. Things like that are really and truly what make this job worth it and what make this one of the best jobs in the world. There's really not much more you can ask for as far as meaning, as far as having a meaningful job. And that's not to demean anybody else's career choices, but having that kind of impact on an individual and a family is a really, really cool, very rare experience. And myself and others that have gotten to experience that are blessed to be a part of that. So that's a really, really memorable call and things like that. So, all right, guys. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. Thank you for showing up tonight. Thank you for all of you that donated. If for some reason I missed your question, throw it in the comments below. I want to find a way that's better for me to answer as many questions as possible. If you guys have, That's a good question. If you guys have any ideas as far as what would be the best way to help all of you and get to answer as many questions as possible that I can, as specifically that I can, maybe this channel just turns into exclusively a live channel. I don't know. Maybe I'll still post videos here and now. Maybe I just do more of these. I don't really know yet. But whatever your ideas are, when this video is posted, put them in the comments. That way I can see them. And yeah, we'll just keep going. In the meantime, I will get another one of these scheduled. I will make sure everybody's well aware of it well before it happens, and I won't do it on a Monday night. I know a lot of people don't have Monday nights available. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for all of you that donated. I look forward to seeing all of you in the next live chat. See you guys in the next video.